All right. Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited, Dina, to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
This was so fun. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. As you probably know by now, the way I love to start off Hey Docs is to just have my guests take a moment, tell us a little bit about themselves, and especially for you, your journey in orthodontics.
Yeah. So, how it all started, I was born and raised in Austria, and she's going way back here.
Yeah, hey, that's all right.
Well, that has a significance because my mother is American, and so that kind of shaped me as a person who lived a very transatlantic life. And so that also applied to my education. So, when I graduated high school in Europe, I came to California and went to college at UCI. But then I went back to Europe thinking that I would settle down. And so I went to actually dental school in Germany thinking that I would stay there. But life had a few twists and I got re-imported to America and ended up in New York City. And so I did my residency at NYU.
Mm.
And the goal was always to go back to Europe, but that didn't happen because my then life partner was building a life here in the United States and we got recruited to Maryland. And so that's how I ended up here at Maryland. But here's the thing. So, because of this education and the back and forth, I didn't really have a license to practice right then and there in the United States or here in the US. So, that's how I ended up in academia. And I was offered a position at the University of
Mhm.
Maryland. And I had an intramural practice there. And so, I've been an academic for over a decade now, Jill.
Yes, I love that, and I know we've known each other for a while, and it's always fun for me to see the doctors that I've been able to work with and just their journeys because each one of you are so unique in how you got to be where you're at, and I especially love that, of course, we were able to do a startup together, and just that progression out of the academia world into okay, now we're moving into private practice and totally different as we've had many discussions about. And that's what I wanted to talk about today is when you started your practice. And I can remember those conversations way back when that we would have. You had a very specific vision for what you wanted out of a practice, for the needs that you wanted to meet in the community. And I really loved how you had this vision. And I think some of that just came from where you had been in your orthodontic journey. But I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about that and just what your vision was, the type of services that you wanted to provide, and then even down to when we designed your office, like how did we design that? So do you mind taking a little deep dive with us there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that segue from academia to private practice was was very exciting. It was felt very
Mhm.
creative and it's something that I always had cooking in the back of my mind and my vision was distinct. I really wanted to create what I think is a fusion practice. So I
Mhm.
wanted to have orthodontics, but also aesthetic services in my portfolio. And that kind of reflected itself in my practice design. So I think I recall my first conversation with my architect. I said, look, this is what I want. And it sounded a little bit like this. I wanted sort of Apple Store meets Brooklyn Cool, breezy California, mash that up with Getty Center and eco luxury vibe. Got it? He's like, yep,
Yeah.
got it. So I gave him a lot of ammo with color and design, and I have this really bright and light, very clean design. It's very European. And the truth is, Jill, actually, it had to tick a lot of boxes. It had to be on the one side a practice that could do orthodontic services from 5 to 95, but then also aesthetics, which included aesthetic injections. I really wanted to do therapeutic and aesthetic Botox in my practice.
Mhm.
And I can go into that a little bit. So I wanted to blend those and fuse those together. And so my design reflected this feel. And I think we nailed it. I think it just really has this clean, timeless sort of vibe. And the truth is, I wanted to be very intentional about my build out and about my design.
Yes.
I literally thought about how can I monetize in each room, right? Each square
Mhm.
foot.
Yes.
And so, in fact, my waiting room has shelving built in that is created for retail. So, if I wanted to, There, I can have retail set up in the front. I could do something like sell branded teeth whitening or tchotchkes or awesome Twinkie t-shirts or anything. Could just serve as that. But for right now, it's a really nice plant wall. And I love that for right now while I'm boiling the ocean and getting a practice started here. And then the practice also had to have a very neutral look to it and a vibe that could turn at any moment because I put my art up on the wall. So even the walls are a source of monetization, but that is actually a charity. So instead of having a lot of brand colors, it almost looks like a gallery. And so if I want to
Yes.
have a certain vibe, maybe like such as in the background, right now it's very whimsical and playful and pops of colors and sort of abstract neons that gives my practice a certain feel, but I can take all the art down and just flip it and go very austere and just go from very feminine maybe to more masculine. And I think another box that it needed to tick off is how do I sell this place one day? Right. So one day I will have to sell
Yes.
it. So I wanted something that could be very appealing to just about anybody. So if a male or a female buyer stepped in, you can tip the needle any which way and it's going to work for you probably.
Hmm.
And so that was a lot of it. Those were the intentions. Those were some certain things that I wanted to make sure I had in my design.
Yeah. And that was something when we were working together that just you really stood out to me in that regard because you had such a vision. And what I don't think a lot of people probably know is you're an artist also. You just alluded to it. I love the idea of I've had other docs who've been photographers or whatnot and wanted to do that. And I just thought, what a great way to really just really not only promote yourself, but if there isn't a true essence of who you are and what your vision is, I think when you have a look into somebody's almost soul when it comes to from art or whatever that vision was and is, especially as you're changing that around. I, the other thing that I really appreciated, and I think a lot of docs, it's scary enough to do a startup when you think, gosh, I'm going to do basic treatments. But then you saying it's not enough that I want to just really meet the orthodontic need, but also the aesthetic component of it. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about why you wanted to start with that and even how that played into the vision of your practice.
Yeah. Yeah. So aesthetic injections was something that I got interested when I turned that big number in my life. And then I asked myself, who really does this and how do you train
Mm,
for it? I automatically just called a plastic surgeon, frankly. And then I realized that it's actually for anybody who has a particular degree or a license. And I got so curious about it. And so I went down a rabbit hole.
yes.
And then in my mind, I was like, this is the perfect match. Because if you think about it, a DDS is trained from the get go for injecting, and we're
Hmm.
very detailed facial anatomy. And I mean, we can numb up someone's head. And I recall distinctly in dental school, I had an outstanding professor, and I had a really good foundation for this. And I always loved it. I always loved anything
Yes.
invasive. I do my own gingivectomies. I place TADs. I give it to me. I'll do it. But then I also became an orthodontist, right? So orthodontist is AKA the specialist of the face.
Yes.
So if you eclipse those two, it makes so much sense, right? It is completely logical to me to do something like this and to augment what I can provide to my patients. If you
Hmm.
think about it, orthodontics is very much a one and done. I'll see you once, I'll give you a beautiful smile, send you into the world, but then I'll never see you again. Jill, I like repeat business. I don't know about you. I like to see you back.
Absolutely.
I want to see you back for teeth whitening. I want to see you back for Botox, whether that is therapeutic or aesthetic. I love repeat business. And so I put on, this is merged into my schedule, and I sometimes do something called Botox Besties and Bubbly or something like that. And I have private events where I do this, and it's a lot of fun. And new people come into my practice, and well, these
Yes.
lovely ladies have children, and now we are stirring this pot of marketing, and they get to know me, they see the practice, and they go, oh, I didn't know this was here. This is great. Maybe I'll bring
Yes.
Johnny. And then maybe they
Yes.
would like to do Invisalign, and then they find out about the whitening. And so it's also a tool for marketing, frankly. And so to me, Botox was just logical. that made so much sense to me. And I think really as orthodontists, why can't we branch out? Why can't we be
Absolutely.
right? Why can't we do airway? Why can't somebody be a specialist for TMJ or TMD and augment what they do and not just be braces and invisible clear aligners, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure. And I think that was what I felt like. I've had a couple docs that have done this, and I thought that you did this so well because going back to an even initial design, this was your vision. And when I talk a lot with docs about, okay, what's your vision going into doing your startup? And I think so many times we just get stuck on, I've always had a vision of doing my own practice,
Hmm.
but this was like the next level of I want to do my own practice, not I want to do a multi-specialty practice. And it's all good. But what I loved working with you, and I loved that vision from the very beginning. And then when you talk about your practice, it to me, it really was like, I think you designed it like an art gallery. And to know that I'm designing it aesthetically so that people enjoy it when they're coming in and out, but also with the marketing mindset of I'm going to have after hour parties in here. I'm going to be having these events that are outside of what you would think an orthodontic office is going to have. And to me, it's just that next level thinking of how do we merge an industry that should be our industry, but I just don't feel like we I don't know, we've just grabbed onto it yet and saying, gosh, there's a whole big market out there for that. And I know that since you have started doing this, you've really seen the results of that.
Hmm. Yeah, and to be honest with you, it is very legit for us to do is because when you go to any of these injection training courses, when they show their presentations, guess where they take the information for aesthetic proportions and the aesthetic lines and all of that? That's the orthodontist. So when I sat there
Yes.
and I had a little bit of a smirk, I was like, "Hello, Ricketts. I know you." It does come quite from, I think, from our corner. And if you have any knack for it and any interest, I think it's just a wonderful way to augment what you already know so well how to do because we study faces all day, every day. And if you enjoy this, why not do it?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit also just about how you took not only the aesthetics of design of your office and had a vision, but also one of the things that I've really appreciated about you is truly your brand and your marketing efforts, which again, to me, have always been just a little bigger than average.
I was
You
waiting
know?
for the adjective. I was like, oh, what's coming?
What is coming? And I think what has been so wonderful watching your journey again is that, and what I hope our listeners hear is that you can be bigger than just the color palette of your logo.
Mm,
And I feel like you have done a really good job with that, even down to Twinkie. And I
mhm.
want you to talk about, because everyone's, what do you mean? Is she into Hostess products or what here? Uh, but
Yeah.
would you mind just diving into that and
Mhm.
talking to us about that? And I just have to say this before you get started is what I have loved, and I encourage a lot of my doctors to follow you and your brand and what you're doing out there socially and whatnot, because I feel like you've done this all on your own. And so
Mhm.
many times I feel like our docs are like, not that using a marketing company can't be great, but you've done this on your own and you've
Mhm.
found your path. So can you take it back and then take it forward for us?
Yeah. Yeah. So to give a bit of a zoom out, I planned all of this in 2019 and I started my build out in January of 2020. And so then
Mhm.
12 weeks later, I think we all know our world actually started to spin backwards. And everything that I thought that I would do and had planned for and was ready in the pipeline, I had to literally scrap it and throw it away.
Yeah.
And nothing that I had thought would work because everybody else was talking about pivoting Truth is, Jill, I had nothing to pivot on. I wasn't even open. My
Yep.
construction got shut down because the bank shut me down. So that's a whole different podcast. But so
Yes, it is.
I had to get very creative, and I really had to. There was no plan A, no plan B. I really had to create maybe a third door. I had to create something that was completely new. And I'll just share with you maybe what carries me is my philosophy is this. My company philosophy is work well and play always.
Mm,
So it's not work hard, play well, work hard, play hard. It's work well and play always. And so this
yes.
nuance of play, I carry this in everything that I do. That's my team, my day, also what my practice looks like, and my marketing and my branding. So during COVID, I had to get creative with marketing. And I always had this vision and idea of really cool vintage ice cream truck, but the cost and everything was so way out of my league. I found this little white utility car, super inconspicuous and just little white thing. You'd think it was a gardener's truck or something, right hand drive, manual. And I said, why don't I just take this, design it, and turn this into this want to be VW bus? I take it to the
Yes.
shop, and then the guys go, we can do this, but we only have Mustang vintage colors. And I said, what is it, Mustang? Yeah, it was. And they said, we got this blue. I said, good, fine, that'll work. So I told him to start painting away, and I got these adornments for this little bus, these little vintage wheels, and I put a surf rack on top, and I went to the back to the shop, and I looked at it, and it was so tiny and it was so fun. And I thought right there in that moment, it looks like a Twinkie. So I got a historic license plate that says Twinkie and brought it home. And then this is what happened. It was COVID. You couldn't go out to eat. You couldn't really go anywhere. You couldn't go on a date. You had to stand in line to get bathroom tissue. And so I had kids in elementary school. They were homeschooled. So I just needed to get out. So
Yes.
my husband, Victor and I would go out on dates in Twinkie. We would drive around the neighborhood because that's pretty much all you could do back then.
Yes.
And this is what happened. And that's when it happened. The reactions that I got when I started driving the car around was absolutely magical. It was
Yes.
incredible. I wish I had a GoPro in the car. I wish I could have captured so many of those moments. You would always see these parents pointing over to the car, saying, look what's coming. And iPhones would go up, and constant pictures were taken of the car. The pictures would show up on Next Door Neighbor. And I remember a kid who was a big lacrosse player walking towards the car. He took a picture, and it went through Snapchat, and it went all the way around. And all of a sudden, I became synonymous with, oh, you're the orthodontist with the bus. And that
Love
was
it.
my new identity. They didn't know me. They don't know me. They don't know Dr. Sanchez. They don't know who I am. But
Hmm.
Twinkie became Baltimore's jolliest car. It created this identity, and it was everywhere. And that was the birthplace of this very whimsical, really truly bizarre little car. And it gets even crazier. So with every season, I'll get either a giant pumpkin for Halloween on top. There's a big Christmas tree with a Grinch on the top for the holidays. Um, in the summer, it's the unicorn, an inflatable unicorn goes on the car, and it just gets so outlandish, you can't miss it.
Hmm.
And when you talk about marketing, so I want to talk a little bit about that because obviously I would meet with a lot of marketing companies, and I didn't know what I was doing, quite honestly. And I showed up to these great meetings, and they were there with their slick MacBook Pros and their presentations. And I showed up with my little yellow pad and pen, and it was all about inbound and data driven and analytics and this and that. And Jill, I consider myself a reasonably intelligent person, but none of it really made sense to me for me
Hmm.
personally, for my
Yep.
brand. I would ask them a few questions, and usually it would be something very simple. And the answer would be, we'll throw some spaghetti on the wall and we'll see what sticks. You should have seen that speech bubble over my head. There were a lot of question marks in it, and something along the lines of, heck no, I won't do that. And so I said, just do you. Go retro. That's you. Just go simple. And I did. This is, I'll tell you literally how I started. I took the little Twinkie car. My kids stood in front of it. A neighbor kid hopped in with his pug. The little pug is sticking out of the car, sticks his head out. I take this picture, and it was very intentional. I took the picture in front of a very sort of neighborhood home that a lot of people could relate to from the design. It wasn't anything crafted or anything, but it was just very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why. I'm not from here, but one thing I learned about this community is that it's very tribal. And so I'm very
Yes.
intentional about my details. So I took the picture, I created a postcard, and I wrote a list of absolutely every mom I knew, whether it was from preschool, from my kids' soccer team, from lacrosse, from first grade, anything. I wrote this list and I just kept going. And I sat down on date night with my husband was let's write postcards, and we told everybody that we had a practice and that we were going to be open. And I told him a little bit about me, and I would get this reply from some people. I love the card. It's on our fridge.
Oh,
I was like, that totally made my day. What you give me the refrigerator nod for the postcard? And I think it
yes.
just had something to do with this playfulness and with this whimsy of this little bus, and it became synonymous for the area. And now it's on everything. It just took off and is the brand. So
Yes.
that's
And
the
now
story.
Twinkie has a has a brother or a
It's a
sister?
sister.
A sister.
Yeah, Pinky. That's so crazy. So we had so much fun with the car that I said, you know what, let's get a sister. And so now we have the exact same car. We imported it and brought it in, and it's the pink version, and her name's Pinky. And my husband Victor drives her because he does drop off of our daughter at his school. So you have to think these cars go to carpool. These cars
Yes.
show up when we drop our kids off at lacrosse and at soccer, and we throw all their gear in the back of the car. The windows are down and just cruise around the town. And this is the cool thing that happened is that kids said to their mom, I want to go to that orthodontist.
Mhm.
And I had moms come in saying, well, I had an appointment at another orthodontist, but my daughter saw your car and she said, that's where I want to get my braces.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
this identity that I couldn't have and go out to meet and greet people, I couldn't go to the PTA, no events, I couldn't even meet a dentist, I couldn't even take them out for lunch. But people knew the car and it had an immediate attachment and association with my practice. And kids were choosing. So I think it created really this parasocial identity through the car, and people chose that. And that's why they wanted to come here.
Yes.
You're like, you
Yes.
can't be that bad if you drive a car like that.
And I think what I love and have always loved about this story and watching you evolve and grow and just is you have always been true to you. And
Mm,
it has always come back to your initial vision. And for doctors out there that are listening, I hope that you really take this to heart because it is so easy to just lump ourselves with, I need to do what that other doctor did.
yeah.
I need to, and there are some truths to that. We all know that there are some basics when it comes to marketing or what we're doing. But I have always felt that my docs that really can grab a hold of what is meaningful to them, what their vision is, are always more successful. But I think ultimately, and you can tell me if I'm correct in this, I think it's very fulfilling for yourself to be true to yourself in what you're doing and how you are going after your potential patients.
It is true. I think that in the beginning, I definitely had FOMO, is what we call it. I would look at what a lot of other offices were doing, and I always told myself, "Oh my goodness, they have it all figured out. They have it all going, right? Somebody had the Yeti, somebody had the unicorn, and I felt, ooh, I don't know where I land here, and I had no idea. And then it just was a spark, and I just went with a curiosity, and I just followed it, and I said, why not? Just be yourself. That this is something that is okay. Actually, this is okay. Here we go. So when I went to those marketing meetings, they would always say you're going to need an average of 7 touch points before somebody will pick up the phone and call you. And you're going to need to create this broad, you need to cross pollinate on all these different areas. And I'll be honest with you, I never really liked that. I wanted a one and done. I wanted you to see me once and remember me. I don't
Hmm.
want to be in seven different places until you call me. It's too exhausting. And this since you said going big, and I had this thing, sometimes we see something once, right? For example, if you think about Kim Kardashian is known for something very specific, and you know what I'm talking about. It you see it once, and it's etched in your mind. And
Yep.
I said, I want that. I want
Hmm.
lightning in a bottle. I want you to see it once. I want you to remember me, and this is it. And I think with this brand and with this direction that I went in, it actually happened. You see the car once, you cannot forget it. It is etched in your mind, like Kim
Yes.
Kardashian's, you know what, right? It's just there. It's in your brain. You can't get it
Yep.
out,
Yep.
especially when it has inflatable unicorn on top and it's really out there. My kids always say, "Oh my gosh, mom, this is so embarrassing." And I say, "I get it, guys, but it's working, you know,
Yes.
and you
Abs-
have to
abs-
stick with that. And it takes some guts to drive the car. It's for sure a baller car, Jill."
Yeah. Yep. Yep. For sure. For sure. Dina, that's what I love so much about you is because you have always been willing to take the chance in everything from design to vision to even doing things outside of our old school orthodontic box of treatment. Take the chance, bet on yourself. And then that's really what you have doubled down on you, and it has been definitely paying off. And that kind of leads me into my next thought. And of course, you're a mom, you're a practice owner, you're a teacher, you're an artist, you're a wife, you're all of those things. And I want to know, how do you find balance in all of that? And do you think it's possible? Because I feel like that's the question and the conversation I have with my clients all the time is we're just giving. And sometimes it can start to feel a little empty. And I'm wondering if you've got some insight and if you have balance in your life or you strive towards that.
Oh, it's such a good question. I don't think it's a question of balance. I do not think balance exists. I think you have to ask yourself, what do I like to do? What do I want to do? And and what fills my cup?
Hmm.
And then do that. And I think we can do three things, and we can do three things. Everything after that I think becomes more difficult. And so I have to ask myself, do I have the energy to do the things that I want to do? Because
Hmm.
energy is everything and everything is energy. And I have to ask myself, do I have the energy to do all of this? It's not time. It's not a matter of time. We all get 60 minutes in the hour. It's not about balance. It's about this flow. So get really clear on what you love and what fills your cup. And
Yes.
you're right. There is a lot of, I call them withdrawals for what we do because we are in the service industry. And particularly if you're a parent, there's a lot of withdrawals. And so I think what happened a little while ago is that I realized that when you're a startup, you have a lot of energy of desperation, and that will carry you far. Trust me, particularly if you open up in COVID, you have a tank full of gas. Ooh, it's like a rocket. It'll launch you because you're just so desperate to just literally just to survive. But that energy of desperation will fizzle, and then the truth will set in. And what I had realized is, I'm going to say maybe in numbers, maybe people can relate to this. If you want this $1 million life, you cannot have a self care that is $10. So
Right.
if I want to grow in all of these areas, whether it is me as a mother, as an educator, as a team leader, an orthodontist, my self care has to be bigger than all of that. I have to
Yes.
make so many deposits and invest in me first so that I can allow for these withdrawals to happen, these days that are really busy and stressful. And that's what we need to focus on. I think you can break it down in three things. If you want to get there, you need systems,
Mhm.
you need support, you need self-care. And with self-care, you just have to be viciously protective of your own time. You have to take it, otherwise I would burn out.
Yes.
And I have to replenish myself. So I have to make sure I nurture myself to have this $1 million life. literally, proverbially, whatever you want to call it. But if you want to be big, you have to build the energy inside of you. And those are a lot of very small habits,
Mm-hmm.
almost like atomic habits. And you have to build
Yep.
them into your everyday life, and you have to be consistent with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
You are so wise. And it's so true. I love what you just said there. And I hope I'm going to just have you say it one more time, the three that you think are key, because I want listeners, I want you to take a minute and write these three down.
Yeah. So to have and to do everything that you want to do, you need to have systems,
Yes.
you need to have support and
Yep.
self-care.
Yep. Yep. That's the top three right there. I think that you are so right on
Hmm.
track with that. And again, it's not that all three of those are going to be ever in balance, because I agree with you. I don't think we ever have balance. I think we have seasons in our
Hmm.
lives where maybe I love how you're saying withdrawals. Maybe we've got more withdrawals than normal. But we always have to keep messing with those levers and make sure that we're not losing track of ourselves and just losing track of where we're going.
Hmm.
So, as we're finishing up here, gosh, Dina, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I'm wondering if you can talk just a little bit about, and this could be like a whole nother episode here, and I may have you on for it to really explore it. But there's one other thing that I think that has been very, very unique about what you have done, not only in starting the practice and having the vision, but you also have Victor, your spouse, involved in the practice. And again, I think we're going to do a whole episode on spouses in practice, but
Hmm.
could you touch on that just a little bit and how that has also played in? Because I know initially that wasn't our original thought from the beginning, but it has become just this beautiful thing. And I'm wondering if you can just touch on how you guys have done that, and then also a little bit about the we'll say the personal and business balance that you guys have tried to
Hmm.
find.
Yeah. Yeah. So this wasn't planned at all. Um, so first of all, Victor is a contractor, and he actually built the practice. So he knows this space like the back of his hand. And this
Mhm.
was the easiest build out, I think. And I am so grateful for him. He kept a lot from me. And it was going to be a build out and then done. And so in COVID, obviously, you can imagine it's very difficult to hire anybody. I got lucky. I found a really lovely employee, a wonderful person. We trained her up with the help of you and your incredible team. And she unfortunately had some health issues. So many months in, that started to take overhand. And unfortunately, she showed up one day and she said, I have to take care of my health and I need to go through these procedures and I have to go. And my throat tightened and my hands got clammy and sweaty, but I was like, I get it. I get it. I knew you need to take care of yourself. Your health
Yes.
comes first. I wish you all the best. I love you to pieces. All the best to you. She walked out and I had 7 minutes to find a new person. And so I called Victor, of course. I said, Victor, you have 7 minutes to get here and be a TC, an FC, a CEO, and everything. You're going to have to come in now. I think we had you on an emergency call
Yep.
and we trained him up in no time. And he was my front office team for several
Yes.
months until we found somebody. And it was amazing. And from there, it just grew. He's basically the financial coordinator now. He has a place in the office and he's a great estrogen balance to the whole team. And I'll say that everybody needs a Victor. Everybody
Yeah.
needs a Victor in their lives, and he just brings a great energy to it, to the whole environment. And I love that I have a set of eyes in the front. So
Mhm.
he has his eyes in the front, my eyes are in the back, and it just feels very good. And I can trust, and I can just let go and focus on my team and my clinical care. So that worked out really well. His role is now just really pared down or to the finances, and he
Yep.
can take care of the business. Obviously, in the meantime, I have a team of unicorns. I have amazing TC and then an awesome clinical team. So we're a team of what, 7 now, and which is awesome. And so he has a minor role, but I love having him there. He knows the
Yes.
lingo. He comes to all the conferences with me, and he's just
Yeah.
kind of part of the big picture.
Yeah. And there is something special. Not all of us have that opportunity and to work
Mhm.
with our spouses, and not all of us can, and it may not even be your vision, but it is pretty special. And I can say that even from my own business, knowing that Doug was able to retire from police work and come to work in JA&A, and it's definitely, I'm sure, like everybody can imagine, there are times where you want to leave work at work and home at home, and but it's pretty special when you can make that work. And that is definitely something I've seen with you and Victor as you guys have went through this over the years. And I'm just happy for you that has worked out, and you can have that extra support in the business.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Eh,
So as we finish up here,
mhm.
I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts, if you were to say, here's some advice I would give docs that are out there listening who may be opening up their practice, or maybe are in the throes of their practice and just feeling like they need to pivot. They need to get out of the cookie cutter way of doing the traditions of a practice.
Yeah. Ooh, advice. Maybe if you zoom in and you're really just starting out and you're thinking about your practice and thinking about your space, maybe think about what you may want to do and plan for flexibility. You never know.
Mm.
Plan for growth, plumb for more chairs than you might need in the beginning. Plan for more storage than you think you'll ever need. Trust me. Plan for more outlets. And it sounds ridiculous, but those are the little things that bug you in the end when you don't have them. So plan for a lot of that stuff in advance and just plan for growth. Um, don't be afraid to be very candid with your design team and with your architect. Be really direct. And if you have a knack for it, then express that. I mean,
Yes.
I knew exactly what grain of wood I wanted and everything. Just let them know. I think just be open about that. And so that would maybe be some build out advice. The other thing is maybe when it comes to your team, I think that's one of those pinch points for all of us. It's a tough one. It's hard. And I think for me personally, it's definitely a trigger. It triggers me and it causes me a lot of stress and anxiety for sure. But I've had to learn to change my leadership, one of maybe vulnerability. And I had to shift away from that classic sage on the stage from academia and just let them in, as I'm a woman
Yes.
and a mom too, and just be like, let them know and be open. That was very hard for me to do,
Mhm.
but also invest in your team. Really
Yes.
invest in your team. So I take my team to meetings, I take them to conferences. For example, this summer, I invested in a mindset makeover course for them. It's virtual, live, it's here. They can just watch it during their lunch. And it's something that's just for them, for their
Mhm.
life. What do you
Mhm.
want to grow into? And then we just went to this incredible in office course. Oh my gosh, DM me if you want information. And that just launched, this is going to catapult us into a different orbit. We
Yes.
came back with lists and notes, and they're like, Doctor, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they're ignited, they're just lit up and feel so empowered. And just invest in your team and
Yes.
let them know how special they are. And when you invest in them, it's a high form of respect, I think, to
Mhm.
invest in their growth and their education.
Yeah.
That would be my that would be my advice maybe for teams. And I think maybe from a personal perspective, if you want to go to the zoom out, I think that orthodontics or orthopreneurs think of entrepreneurship as self-discovery disguised as a business. And
Yes.
you need to learn to grow yourself first. And it's going to sound typical because we're so used to giving and giving. I would implore to anyone to be selfish with your time, not out of a state of selfishness, but you're going to need this to thrive, not
Yeah.
just to survive, but you're going to need this to thrive. So grow yourself and make sure you take inventory of your self-care and create a joy list. It sounds crazy, but whatever you want to feel more of, you are not going to get it from work. You are not going to get it from a great team. You're not going to get it from the dollars in the bank account. The joy has to grow over here, right here, and you're in you. And so create a joy list and just go for it. And there is no shiny object out there. It's not a practice. It's not a reputation. It doesn't matter how much I publish. It doesn't matter how much I speak or any of that. It doesn't really matter until I know what my worth is.
Yes.
And so maybe if you're going out there and looking out and thinking that this is going to fill that spot right in here, it's not going to.
Yeah.
So that sounds difficult maybe to hear, but I want you to know that if you just keep going and don't do this, you're building a golden cage. I ran into that. I built a golden cage, and I was getting to the point where I was, oh my God, what am I doing? Why did I do this? I had to shift
Yes.
my mindset. So fill your cup and really dig deep into the faith and to your whatever that is, and nurture yourself, nourish yourself, and that's really where the juice is.
Yes. Ah, such
Mhm.
sage advice for sure. For sure. Dina, as we wrap up, this has been such a pleasure. And I just want to thank you for being on Hey Docs. This has been great. And if I like to always finish it up with a little speed round. Are you ready for the speed round challenge?
Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. Sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Coffee or tea?
oh, tea.
All right. Do you have a favorite book?
I have a favorite author. It's an Austrian author. It's Stefan Zweig. I loved his books, but I read them in German. Maybe for
Oh.
nowadays, I would say I'm reading a lot. I've been reading a lot of Benjamin Hardy. I can
Hmm.
highly recommend that. If you need some good mindset hacks, get the audiobooks. Benjamin Hardy, 10x is easier than 2x. I like that a lot right now.
That's
Mhm.
great. That's great. How about a favorite outdoor activity?
Ooh, hiking and
Great.
skating, ice skating, ice
Who
skating.
would think that, right?
Little
Um,
Austrian girl, you're sweet.
of course, of course. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would that be?
A good mama.
Oh,
I
that's a
just
good
want to
one.
be the best mom to my boys. Yeah, my
Yeah.
kids.
And then best piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh, if you want to be polished, you got to take the rub.
Oh, that's a
Mm,
good one. That's a
mhm,
really good one. I
mhm.
love it. Dina, this has been great. In the event somebody wants to get a hold of you, they want to check out your social, what's the best way they can do that?
Easy way to get a hold of me is just my Instagram. I get a lot of DMs that way. So it's literally just Roland Park Orthodontics. That's my Instagram. You can call my office. You can also email me at hello@rolandparksmiles.com. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for being on Hey Docs. It has been wonderful as always. And I'm sure I will have you on again. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill.